Hello, and welcome back to my podcast. Today, we start a new series on health. Today, I want to talk about befriending illness and injury. I know that sounds like a really weird way of putting it because whenever we hear of people getting really sick, we think of them fighting the disease. Well, a few years ago, I ended up in the hospital with chest pain and got a bunch of tests done, went home. And I got a call the very next day from one of the physicians at the hospital saying, "We've seen something on your chest x-ray we're very concerned about. We'd like you to come back in for more tests." So I came back, they ran a series of tests, and this very somber doctor comes back into the room and says to me, "You've got a rare and incurable disease that's potentially life-threatening called sarcoidosis." And my first reaction probably came across as a bit blasé, because I just said, "Oh, okay." I wasn't new to dealing with disease. I'd grown up in the Niagara region where, because of various pollution issues, there's a lot of cancer. At 12 years old, I had a friend die of brain cancer. By the time I was in high school, I was dating a fellow whose mother was wasting away from a cancer. And by the time I was 14, I'd seen my mother through cancer twice. So I wasn't a stranger to disease, but I'd also developed a philosophy around it. We are an energy field. The body is just the slowest moving part of the field. So because we are this energy, I believe that it is malleable based on our thoughts. And this is borne out by books like The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, where he explains that there are chemoreceptors on the cells in our body that are basically like on-off switches that respond to our thoughts. So if we are not processing something mentally and emotionally, our body is going to do it for us. So here I was with this disease, and the way it manifested for me, and I should explain this, sarcoidosis is basically these little growths called granulomas that can form anywhere in the body. Quite often it's in the lungs and around the heart, but it can affect the eyes, and people have lost their sight to it. It does have the potential of ending your life. A lot of people go into remission and never have another flare-up, but it's never considered cured. In my case, these granulomas were forming in the lymph nodes around my heart. In other words, I literally had this wall around my heart. Now, in my life, there's been quite a lot of loss and trauma. So it made sense to me that my heart was protecting itself. But a protected heart doesn't allow us to fully engage as deeply as we could in loving relationships. It holds us back if it's too protected. So I had some work to do. I did exactly what the doctor told me to do. I was very lucky. I was not put on prednisone. A lot of people with sarcoidosis are. My doctor put me on an inhaler, which for me did the job of dealing with my symptoms, which were severe shortness of breath and chest pain. But I discovered supplements that would help as well, like quercetin, turmeric, bromelain, started taking those. But these are all still external things. I had to deal with what was the internal issue that I wasn't fully aware of, that I hadn't addressed well enough, that disease came to me as a teacher. So I started working on what my core patterns were that were causing me to wall off. I continued to do that work, and as of last August, I was considered free of any pathology. And by November, I'd met the love of my life, who I'm marrying in September. So having done the work, my heart opened and allowed love into my life. So disease and injury can be wonderful teachers if we will treat them that way. I know as soon as I got my disease, a friend said, "Well, you have to fight this." And that immediately felt wrong. It was like, but this is my body. Why would I be fighting my body? In fact, I think a lot of times what disease is we're at war with ourselves and the body is expressing it. Maybe we aren't honoring a feeling. I don't want to be angry, or I don't want to be sad. So we push it down inside, and our body goes, well, fine, it's got to come out somehow. So it comes out as disease or injury. There's an expression that first you get a message, then you get a warning, then you get an event. So the message might be you stub your toe and you go, oh, I've just stubbed my toe. I'm going to continue to rush around and ignore whatever message I'm being given. You might not even realize at that point that there is a message. So then maybe you sprain your ankle, but you're still not listening. So then maybe you break your leg and you're laid up in bed having to finally deal with your stuff because you've been slowed down to a halt. I remember somebody who was running a yoga studio, doing all this amazing work, but something inside of her hadn't been dealt with, and she was sitting on the edge of a cliff and asking the universe to help her figure out what that was. And the cliff gave way from under her. She spent 6 months in the hospital. The next time I saw her, she was radiant and said that was the best thing that could ever have happened to me. She grew so much in her time in the hospital. Ideally, we would like to be able to do all of our spiritual work without illness or injury. But sometimes something is just so deeply embedded in us, we can't get to it. In my work, a lot of what I do is actually tap into my client's subconscious to help them understand what's going on in them that they can't find. But sometimes, if we're doing our own work, it will come up for us in incidents in our life. It can come up as illness and injury as well. So as much as we can be there to support each other in this work, we also have to do our own work. And if there's something we can't find, it's just so deeply suppressed, illness can be a wonderful way of bringing it to the surface. And it's the same with injury. So if something is going on with your body, rather than fight it, try asking internally, what is this about? What is this trying to teach me about myself? One way of looking at that as well is, a lot of people, the philosophy is that the left side is the feminine, the right side is the masculine. So the feminine being the intuitive, receptive side, what are we allowing ourselves to receive in terms of wisdom, assistance, love? And the masculine side is the part that takes action. So if, say, you injure your right leg, is there a way that you're struggling to move forward on something? If you hurt your left shoulder, are you having trouble receiving? Maybe you're shouldering too much of a burden. Our body can sometimes speak to us symbolically. So the first thing we want to do when we're injured or ill is to be first grateful for the teacher. And I know that can be really hard if you're in pain, if you're suffering. And also asking, what is it trying to tell me? And in my work, there have been times that I have been with people to their very last breath. That's not a failure. If your illness takes you, you will go through transition. I do believe you will have realizations during that experience and on the other side of it. And you can come into your next life with that awareness and continue to work on your patterns. Our Western society is very much about get it done, and get on with your life, instead of realizing life is an opportunity for awakening. And we always have that opportunity, including if we get an illness that eventually takes our life. So if you've been diagnosed with something that potentially is going to shorten your life, I've seen people do this where they just fight to find every possible cure. And what I say to them is balance that with making time for your loved ones, with enjoying as much as you can the rest of your experience in this physical form. Look for the things you need to look for, but don't make survival your main focus. We're all going to die. It's part of being in this existence. It is a temporary one. We can obsess so much about the possibility of dying that we never really live. But I've always said there's two kinds of people in the world: those who are truly alive and those who are just trying not to die. So once we accept our mortality, we can live more in the moment. What is this moment trying to teach me? What can I learn? How much can I wake up? Take the pressure off of yourself of thinking you have to do everything in this lifetime. We are eternal beings having one of many human experiences. Just work with what's in front of you. A lot of times we defeat ourselves by going, oh, I have so much work to do. I'm never going to get this work done. Instead of just going, this is what's showing up right now. If I give this moment my full attention, it will make the next moment reveal itself, and the next, and the next. We will grow expansively if we actually apply ourselves to what's showing up right now. And it's amazing how, when you start to tune into what's going on with your body, it can affect your consciousness. A lot of times, for example, we try to avoid pain. We don't want discomfort. And yet that can be a powerful tool for transformation. If you can breathe into where your body is hurting and sit very still and really go into that experience and get to what emotion it evokes, and then sit with that emotion, that's part of tuning into your emotional intelligence, your intuition. If you want to understand yourself better and be more in tune with your higher wisdom, then use the channels being given to you. If there's pain, go into it. What's on the other side of that? What's waiting for you if you will just drop down into the experience you're having? And I'm not saying don't take pain medication. I did exactly what my doctor told me to do. It's working hand in hand with what you're given. But if stuff is coming up for you through the body, pay attention. And if you need pain medication because it's so overwhelming you can't sit and pay attention, take your medication, but do your best to continue to sit and do the self-inquiry. What is this condition trying to teach me? What is it trying to show me that I'm just not seeing? I've been doing this work on my own self-development for about 40 years now, and there's always more to learn. So I didn't go, oh, I haven't done the work that this disease has visited itself upon me. Instead, I thought, I've been trying really hard to figure out how to work on this, and I'd been doing a lot of work on my heart. I had felt tightness there for a long time, but I needed some help. The universe came to help me by giving me that condition. What an interesting symbology that I had these growths around my heart. So by working directly with the disease, it really helped me to work on the condition and work on the underlying condition of the pattern that thought I needed that protection. And it transformed my life. So remember that everything you're going through is transformative, whether it transforms you out of this life and into the next, or whether it transforms you in this life, if you will allow it, if you will work with it and not fight it. That's my suggestion. It's interesting that in places like Tibet, they have a practice called POA, PHOWA. POA practice is preparing for death. In the POA practice, you imagine above you in the sky whatever spiritual deity you believe in. It might just be this loving energy. And you imagine all of your energy going to your heart and lifting up and out of you and joining that energy in the sky. So they practice this on a regular basis so that when they die, they've already been so practiced in this, it's just natural for their energy to go up and join that energy. And they've expressed confusion as to why people in North America don't have a practice like this. Instead, we fear death, we fight it, we try to get away from it, we try to prolong our lives as long as possible, even to the point where somebody whose organs are failing gets revived and put on a whole lot of tubes in a hospital just to keep them alive. And why? At that point, the quality of life isn't there. So practicing dying, as it were, is acknowledging this life is temporary. We're going to pass, and we can do it with grace if we've already accepted that possibility and trained for it. It really does change things, so that when you do get a diagnosis, instead of going, this shouldn't be happening, why is this happening to me? It's simply, oh, okay, this is the next stage of my life. This is the next experience. And for me at 60, my body sometimes shows signs that it's not doing everything the way I would like it to. And what's interesting about acknowledging aging is it's recognizing that the process of aging is designed to turn you inward. Maybe you can't run as fast as you used to. Maybe your body doesn't work quite the way it used to when you were younger. You can fight that. You can try to be younger than you are. Or you can say, this is an opportunity for me to sit more, meditate more, do the spiritual work to prepare myself for that time when I cross over. When we're constantly in denial that that's going to happen, it's wrenching. It's traumatizing when somebody says, you've only got so long to live, because we've been in denial all that time. When instead we realize, I've only got so much time here. What am I doing with this time? And am I preparing for the time when I will transition out of this life? It's a gentler approach, in my opinion. And I think that was one of the great gifts sarcoidosis gave me, is it said, your time could be up a lot sooner than you expected. What are you doing with your time? It really made me lead a life of more immediacy. Am I serving my people? Am I giving everything I can? Am I nurturing and taking care of myself? Am I loving myself? Am I allowing myself to be loved by others? So that now I lead a life of great adventure. I'm marrying the love of my life. We love our motorcycle trips and going boating and spending time with our friends. We're very active in our community. We have a very full life. I just love every minute of it. And I love the work that I get to do with you. It's so rewarding. It's my path to do it. It's my joy to do it. It's my honor. I feel more alive now than I did before I had that disease come along and wake me up and say, hey, you've only got so much time here. Are you really living, or are you just biding your time? Are you wasting your time? So if you are dealing with an illness, if you are dealing with an injury of some kind, feel all the feelings. Allow yourself to feel all the emotions connected with whatever is coming up for you. But then ask internally, what is the lesson here? And see what happens when you can practice gratitude for the experience you're having. At the highest spiritual level, everything is happening exactly the way it's supposed to. Everything is happening so you can wake up. That's why we're all here, to become conscious. I hope that's useful to you today. If you are dealing with illness or injury, if you want assistance in understanding what the core patterns are that are operating through your condition, I'd be happy to work with you and help you understand that and give you some more tools to befriend your condition and use it for your spiritual growth. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next week.